should see the Zoom voice reminding us that this meeting is being recorded. So for today, we have Stephen presenting a retrospective for the Antrea project for the past 6 months. From the Kubernetes channel, I can see that he has prepared quite a lot of stuff, so this is going to be very interesting. So thanks, Stephen, for preparing this, and the floor is yours.
Okay, just a minute. I'm going to model this for those of you who were here back on June 15th. We did this once before with Cody moderating. So I'm going to use the same tool he did. It's actually the vendor of that tool renamed it, so it looks like it's something different. They renamed it to Easy Retro, but it's the same thing that was used before. It's my first time using it, so hopefully this will go error-free, but we'll see. Let me post a link to this tool in the chat, and it's also in the Zoom if anybody finds that more convenient than the chat. And then let me share my screen. Okay, because I'm moderating, I've got two versions of this open, but I think you should be able to see the standard one that you get yourself if you open it. And what we're going to do here is have people initially set proposals in these 4 columns or categories. We'll allow about 4 minutes to do that. And this is entirely anonymous. When we do these retrospectives, the point of keeping this anonymous is that sometimes people feel more free to make comments in an anonymous form because doing it openly might feel like you're criticizing the management of a project or the way things are going. So we're just going to keep this anonymous. You should be able to open that link and participate in this with no registration, no email. Open it incognito in a browser if you like. I think that all works. So the initial stage is that down these columns, you can add as many comments or cards as you like. Then after this process, I'm going to hit this button that says show cards, and they will be visible. And then we'll vote on them. And just like the initial composition of the cards, there will be voting. Let me see, how many people do we have today? They recommend that you have 6 votes, but if we have very few participants, maybe I'll cut that down. But it looks like 6 should be quite workable, so we'll do it that way. So I think I've enabled submitting cards. So just go for it, hit the plus sign, I believe, and then you can add a card. Just if you want to nominate something that you think is working well, that, hey, let's not change this, or maybe even let's expand on it, that's what belongs there. Things that we want to stop, change, or improve are ideas for things that either need to improve to make this project better, or are so bad or such a waste of time that maybe we should just stop doing them altogether. New ideas is just totally open-ended. If you have any wild and crazy ideas, or maybe some that aren't wild and crazy, but things that can make the Antrea project more successful, that's what goes there. Then it's been 6 months since we had the last one. And on open source projects, it's always good to recognize people or groups or even ideas or practices that really worked out well, to shine the spotlight on them, because by getting this kind of recognition, we can all see what's working very well for the group and amplify that and make it work better. So I'm going to allow 4 minutes to compose cards. Can somebody just, as soon as somebody tries one, if you could just go on your microphone and let me know it's working for you. And in the meantime, let me see, I'll just play some background music. Okay, it looks like we've got a couple added, so I think it is working. This is a classical music piece called Clair de Lune or Moonlight. It lasts 4 minutes, and when it's over, we'll stop. And we've got about 30 seconds left. If anybody needs any more time, speak up and we can lengthen this, but it looks like we've got a lot of cards already. Okay, the music's over. I didn't hear anybody speak up as to needing more time, so now I'm going to show the cards. We'll go through these and read them and just make sure there are duplicates that we could perhaps combine, and then we'll have a voting stage. So what's working well? The planned release cadence, the ability to manage the complexity of the project and keep introducing new features at a constant pace, More automated verification and tests were added to prevent common issues and guarantee quality. Really fast response when a new issue is opened, quick turnaround when fixing bugs, good attendance and participation in the community meeting. Feedback on the Kubernetes Slack channel are helpful. We should find ways to reach out to more folks. So that is maybe a comment. Reaching out to more folks is maybe under the new idea, but we'll just leave it here. Monitoring and troubleshooting tools have been enhanced, and the Antrea continuous integration is very useful and getting better and better. Okay, so that's great. I understand them all. I don't think there's really any duplicates, so that's a good set of cards. Things to stop, change, or improve. We need to improve code review, and we need more reviewers. More transparency and automation for the website generation so we can accept contributions to the website. In other words, if somebody detects a dead link, they should have a way to fix it by opening a PR directly. More transparency, access to logs for some of the end-to-end test cases for the Windows and IPv6. Fix the CLA validation bot. Many large PRs got merged in the end of the release cycle, which conflict with each other and cause extra effort to rebase and potential issues. Need to improve upstream involvement. Okay, I think that those also are without duplicates, and I understand them, so they're pretty well written. So I think we should be able to vote on them. Understand the objective here isn't to fix all these, it's just to prioritize these, and the fix is a different process. You know, some of these fixes require individual attention or a long period of time. So we're not going to expect that we fix any of these at this meeting. We'll just prioritize what we want to do and maybe identify what we don't want to do. Under new ideas or activities, we should try layer 7 policy and visibility. Have a podcast video or something like that, bi-weekly or monthly. Reach out to major Kubernetes distributions, TOPS, K3S, to see if we can work with their maintainers to provide first-class built-in Antrea support. Encourage Antrea users to come to meetings to give presentations about how they use Antrea and what they like and dislike. Ingress and egress forwarding policies. An office hours community meeting to try and reach more potential contributors. Okay, and I gather that's different from the podcast. It should be, I guess, because office hours could be written questions and more of a deep dive. Chaotic testing, for instance, something like chaos engineering. So I'm imagining that would be a test suite that intentionally injects failures just to see what happens. So yeah, that's interesting, and I think I understand it. For recognition of groups, people, and actions, I'm not sure I'm great at pronouncing everyone's name here, so forgive me, but Zhe Cheng for his hard work maintaining the Antrea CI and continuous improvements he makes. Everybody in the team involved in upstream Kubernetes work who gives back to the community while getting Antrea some name recognition. The team that worked on IPv6 for Antrea. Quan for handling challenging technical problems, Antonin for managing release and talks, and Abhishek for all the Kubernetes upstream work. Okay, it all looks good. I think they're all well written. We're going to move to a phase now where everybody is going to get 6 votes. So you might as well use them all. I don't honestly know whether you can combine them and put all 6 of your votes on one or not, but whatever it is, it is. So I'm going to press the button I see as admin and enable voting and go for it. I believe you click those finger icons and we should see the numbers going up. I'll start the music again, and maybe we'll give this stage 1 or 2 minutes. I'll just wait until I don't see things going up anymore. Okay, I think the upvoting is quieting down, but I'll give it 30 more seconds. Okay, if no one needs more time, or if you do, speak up right now. Otherwise, we're going to call the voting to a close. And I'll take silence as an indication that nobody needs more time. Can everybody see those votes? I mean, I have a special screen, I think, as admin, so I don't honestly know whether they're exposed to everyone.
Yeah, we can see them.
Yeah. Okay, great. So let's just go down the first column and see what the leading things are. Well, first of all, pretty clearly the Antrea CI at the bottom one in the column, in the green column, got a lot of votes with 8. There was nothing else even got half that. So yeah, let's pat ourselves on the back for that. And the comment is that it's getting better and better. So I think we'll leave that alone, but everybody recognizes that. Hopefully the people responsible for doing that are over in the recognition column too. And I actually looks like I see that with Zhang. Then the other things leading with 3 votes, the planned release cadence. That's interesting because I went back and watched the video from June, and I think there were some people thinking that perhaps things were moving too fast. You know, there's always a trade-off in a software project where you can make it schedule-driven, feature-driven, or quality-driven, but you can't do all 3 of those at the same time. You push too fast and something else might have to go, where you're getting more releases, but either less features or poor quality. But it seems like there's a fairly good vote for the pace being about right. And I didn't see anybody nominate over in things to stop or change, anybody asking for it to slow down. So I think that I'll take that as an indication from the group here tonight that generally people are okay with the way things have been going. Then the final one with 3 votes, the ability to manage the complexity of the project and keep new features at a constant pace. It sounds like both the feature process and the pace of introducing new features is okay with people. Then I'm not going to talk about the ones that got 0s. I guess that might even imply that the person who wrote it thought some of the other things that popped on the board were better choices, and we have limited time. But People appreciate the really fast response time when new issues are opened. I'm sure the users appreciate it more than the people here. I don't know if we have any users on this call tonight or if it's all devs. Any users here, please speak up. I'm just curious. Okay, I'll take silence as no users this evening. Then the monitoring troubleshooting tools have been enhanced. Oh, okay, Scott is a user, so we do have one user. Okay, well, that's great. Hopefully by the next review that we'll aspire to having in either 1 quarter or 6 months, like the past cycle, we'll have even more users, because really with any open source project, that's the whole objective. Let's move on to the things to stop, change, or improve. We have a clear leader there with 7 votes. Many large PRs got merged at the end of the release cycle, and they may conflict with each other and cause extra effort to rebase and have potential issues. You know, this isn't unique. Antrea wouldn't be the first open source project or even closed source project to have big rushes for the door at the end of a release cycle. I'm not sure there's a perfect answer here in terms of you know, a process for merging in PRs. You could, you know, you might aspire to first come, first serve, but the trouble is that they're not all created equally in complexity. Some of them might obviously be really low risk and only require a simple review, like fixing a typo. So often things that came in later than somebody else's PR jump the queue. I'm not sure I have a great solution with that. For that, the things you might have control over is whether project admins help with the rebase, or you push that back on the person submitting the original PR to you know, do the rebase. And as a retrospective, I don't think, you know, we're not going to solve these identified issues on the call here in the meeting, but we should recognize that people perceive this as troublesome, and see if anybody's got ideas for how this can be resolved. I've seen in some other Kubernetes SIGs for the Kubernetes project itself that there is a process I've seen done in the storage SIG that has cutoffs for PRs. Now there's a downside there in that it might result in PRs missing the train for the next release and having to delay an entire release cycle. But one way to simplify this is to have hard cutoffs so that you can't have a new one appearing, you know, within the last X days of the planned release. But there's an obvious downside. Once again, it's not even my role to fix this, but let's put it, I think maybe we should discuss this one further in the Slack channel or some other venue that is appropriate for people to submit proposals for doing something about this and have others evaluate the proposals and offer opinions on whether to do the change or not. Okay, moving on, the next leading vote category was improved code reviews, and we need more reviewers. Okay, I'll take that as that with 5 votes, that probably shouldn't be in dispute. What can you do to get more reviewers? Well, you know, reviewing is often thankless work. So maybe at a minimum, over in the recognition column, if anybody really stepped up and did a lot of reviews, recognizing people for that kind of work would be a great idea. You know, it depends on the reviews too, where some of these might be fairly simple and others you don't want to merge a high risk PR without review by a senior architect, but maybe there's a mechanism where we could put in a triage system where someone could do an initial screening and maybe have a volunteer tier for low risk reviews to just, you know, check them out and delegate to a bigger team. And it's a good way to even coach less senior reviewers to move up to higher levels. Just throwing that out as an idea, but really we should discuss ideas for that, maybe over in the community Slack channel too, and see what we might be able to do about that. The third card in this column with 3 votes, more transparency, access to logs for some of the end-to-end test cases. I'm not familiar with that myself, but it sounds like these test cases could either be an individual developer's unit test before they submit a PR, or something that takes place after a PR gets submitted. I'm not sure which, but I don't know. I'd ask whoever wrote this to maybe clarify what the category is for these logs so that we, at least for me personally, it isn't clear what the next step would be. And once again, we could run on Jenkins. Okay. Okay, so that actually is triggered by the GitHub system. Okay, thanks for clarifying that. So, okay, and once again, I'm not that familiar with Jenkins and what you'd need to do to get access to those logs easily. But if the system behind it itself could be improved, that would seem like a good idea. The next vote getter with 2, more transparency and automation for the website generation. Okay, so I know I've spotted some of these dead links on the website myself. So I think this opening a PR directly, I gather, would be a proposal that somebody could go at the website source, if you will, and submit the fix directly. So I don't see much downside to putting that in place, but point taken, and at least 2 people are in favor of that. I see I planned on this being 30 minutes and I'm already at 30. So I'm going to speed it up. We'll move over to the third column.
Stephen, sorry to interrupt. I don't think we have anything else on the schedule, on the agenda. So Salvatore can correct me, but I think you can definitely take 15 minutes more.
Yeah,
okay.
That's correct. That's correct. Please go ahead.
All right. And I see now, I glanced over at the chat and see that somebody made the comment that Windows and IP6 are tested privately. So the logs can't be exposed. Yeah, that seems like a great idea to somehow do that, because I'm even guessing that we might have contributors who don't have a test bed to even get to Windows and IPv6. So getting those out there and visible seems like a fantastic idea. Maybe it's even if there's a system behind copying these files to some public share where everyone can get them, probably with a timeout so they don't build up in perpetuity. Okay, and somebody's suggesting using VPC. Well, once again, let's cut and paste these comments on how to fix it over into the community Slack channel, because I don't think we're going to have the time to come up with a group consensus on what the fix should be, but these ideas are great. So back to the new ideas column, it looks like the lead vote getter, layer 7 policy and visibility, that would be new features. You know, that can't argue with that, especially if we have users voting for it. The other one with card with 6 votes, reach out to the major Kubernetes distributions, COPS, Oh, okay. That wasn't COPS before, so thanks. I understand what that is, K3S. See if we can work with their maintainers to provide built-in Antrea support. Once again, 6 votes. I think that's about as high as we're getting here in voting for these, and not much dispute here. Once again, it's not the place to solve this, but I will make a remark that I'm familiar with at least one, which is microcates, and I think this is true of a lot of them, where you ordinarily don't have a situation where you expect the distribution maker to do the work. They likely have a PR process where what you do is reach out to the distribution and ask if they have a plug-in system for CNIs, maybe even ask them, of all the CNIs they support now, which one is the best implementation, because you want to model yourself after the best one, not a random one. So my experience with microcates, I went to a microcates community event and just asked them. And the leader of that group was very amenable to helping out, even walk through the process of a plugin, showing what's involved by opening up the source line by line. So I think that these distribution backers are very much in favor. My suspicion is that the mid-tier ones are actually more in favor of it than the, shall we say, the leaders, just because they're often in a position, just like the Antrea project, of trying to establish some momentum. So it's a win-win situation for both of us potentially, where the distribution vendor gets external contribution and momentum, and then we submitting a CNI plugin would be getting it too. So the low-lying fruit with maybe much more vigorous cooperation might be kind of the mid-tier distributions rather than the more dominant ones. But of course, the dominant ones have perhaps a lot more user adoption. Moving on, we'll move down to the card with 5 votes, an office hour community meeting to try and reach out to more potential contributors. Sounds like a great idea to try. I'll leave that to project management to try to, aside from declaring the office hours, and I think you'd want at least a few people to show up, maybe go out there and promote the idea that we'd like to have one. And the first community member that would like to ask questions, let's steer them into an office hours event and just schedule it. It probably isn't a bad idea to have that event be either a Zoom or, if it's on Slack for time zone reasons, in just a Q&A stream, to preserve this so that we'd build up kind of a frequently asked questions thing that is preserved and does, just isn't a one-time event that goes away. Moving down to 4 votes, encourage Antrea users to come to meetings. So we've got Scott tonight, but somebody's asking for a presentation on how they use it, what they like and dislike. Well, I hate to put you on, I won't put you under a spotlight and force you to answer tonight, Scott, but in the future, if you'd like to volunteer to do this, apparently it would be quite appreciated. And of course, it would be even better if we can find a few other users. Then finally, we've got a vote for having a podcast video bi-weekly or monthly. I guess I shouldn't take this over, but there's an Antrea dedicated podcast that we run ourselves. But there are also podcasts like the Kubernetes one out there that already have a viewer base. It strikes me that perhaps, and whoever put this card didn't say whether it's an Antrea owned podcast or a more generic one, but I'd suggest that at early stages, when we don't have this huge user base and viewer base, maybe if we could crash the gates and get on podcasts that already have a viewer base and are popular, we'd get more momentum. Just throwing that out there, but we'll take it as an action item to consider that we should have a venue, a podcast, video, or something like this, and discuss later where that is. And finally, let's move over to this fourth column, recognition. And this is perhaps the most important one. We've got 3 of these with 7 votes. So the first one will just go from top to bottom as I see them. Everybody in the team involved with upstream Kubernetes work, who gives back to the community while giving Antrea some recognition. So I think this is people recognizing that being active in an open source project beyond Antrea, specifically Kubernetes, is a big factor in getting Antrea, but not just name recognition, but adoption. That, you know, we can't just stick here in these meetings that we conduct ourselves and have all the great work here going on underneath a barrel that nobody ever gets to see. So it's this crossover into the Kubernetes community that is really going to be the thing that moves the needle and gets actual adoption that makes a difference. So it's great to see this. I don't know how to call out the specific names of people other than, good work, everybody. Let's move on to the other one with 7 votes, Quan, for handling challenging technical problems. So I see you on the call tonight. Congratulations. If I had this, my own department of open source under the MapBU, under normal times would have had a swag budget, but we should see what we can do for these people getting these 7 vote counts to get them some actual tangible recognition, if nothing else other than, a t-shirt or something that they can wear proudly. So maybe somebody in a position here to kind of get some kind of tangible physical recognition for these people would be a good idea. And then Antonin also got 7 votes for managing releases and talks. So I'll join everyone else here in applauding Antonin for this. And it looks, with 7 votes, it seems pretty clear that he's leaving an impression on the team. 4 votes, that's still good. Abhishek for all the upstream Kubernetes work. And I guess in a way he deserves, since the givebacks and participation in the Kubernetes community got 7 votes as a general category. If he's getting 4 votes for being in that category, maybe he should be deemed another 7 vote getter by, by being a big part of the 7 votes for the Kubernetes upstream community work. But congratulations, Abhishek, great work. Keep up the good work. Then Zicheng for his hard work maintaining the CI and the continuous improvements he makes to the CI system. Now, he only got 3 votes, but I have to say that if you look over at the bottom of the green column 1, somehow the CI system got 8 votes. So maybe Zicheng, people only got to allocate 6, but maybe if they had gotten 7, he'd be up there at the top 2. And he owns a piece of those 8 votes down at the bottom of the green column as I see it. So, hey, great work. And I think everybody appreciates it. Then the final one here, the team that worked on IPv6 support for Antrea. So that's recognition for everybody across the group. It means, it's always good to see a team that likes working together to get things done. And that's what this looks like to me, that everybody, it's only 2 votes, but I think people might have naturally wanted to put put their votes behind some of the other categories, but this one is great work by the team. So thanks, everybody. So that's it for the retrospective. I'm going to take a screenshot of this board to preserve it. This easy retro thing is in the free category. So the vendor doesn't guarantee they preserve this in perpetuity, but I'll cut the screenshot of this retrospective, put it in the Slack channel, and then whoever takes the notes and puts them up on GitHub perhaps can go grab the screenshot picture out of the Slack and go put it in the notes to preserve the outcome of this retrospective. And with that said, I think I'll call this retrospective to a close. Now, here I am running a retrospective for the Antrea project itself, but given that this is only our second retrospective, perhaps since we have a little time left, we should have a retrospective of the retrospective. Does anybody want to come enable their mic and give comments on how you think this retrospective went and any ideas you've got for making the retrospective itself better?
Hello, Stephen. This is Salvatore. I think it was a very nice exercise. It allowed us to get a good feeling of the current status of the project. I think that, to be honest, the only thing that I felt it could be better in the retrospective was having more votes for cards. There were a lot of proposals, and maybe 6 votes weren't enough. You should be on mute, I guess. You're on mute.
Okay, that's good feedback, and we'll consider it for the next time. I read about conducting these retrospectives, and a lot of that 6 depends on how many people you have submitting cards, where I perhaps prematurely came up with the 6. To be honest, I only did it because when Cody did it last time, it was 6, and it seemed to go okay, so I went with 6. But yeah, I think we got quite a few more cards than we had in the last one back in June. So if you've got more cards to vote on, perhaps allocating more votes is a great idea. What you don't want is so many that everything comes in tied. So there's kind of a happy ground here where you get enough to get separation, but you don't have people unable to recognize things that they thought were tremendously good or horribly bad.
Makes sense.
Any remarks from anybody else?
I just think it was very nice to be able to compare it to what we did at the previous retrospective as well, and see that a lot of quote unquote negative feedback at the previous retrospective was about the CI system and how it was making the development process more complicated. And it's really pleasant to see that this time around, like the CI is what gets the most kudos here in the first column.
Yeah, I think that really is why we want to have these retrospectives, because it is the mechanism where we continuously improve. You know, really, one solo developer isn't normally empowered to do a whole lot, but as a group, we can take on larger things. And also as a group, maybe 5 people are observing some issue or some opportunity to improve things, but they've never made remarks to each other and it goes unnoticed. You know, sometimes people don't realize that they're not the only one seeing an opportunity. So it's good to see follow up on these. And what I like to do with this board, like I say, I'll cut and paste the screenshot summarizing those votes, but the way to make things happen is to remember the ones that got upvoted in these categories and follow this up with plans to change things.
Actually, did we go back to the previous retrospective and compare as to how we have improved and hopefully not regressed from the previous items?
Well, we didn't, but let me see if I can, here, just a minute. I don't know if I have a capture of that retrospective on my computer. I might. I'll go look for it. If I don't, I'll have to scroll back in Slack all the way to June 15th. Maybe while I look on my computer, because I think I took a screenshot back then, but could somebody else, maybe scrolling back in Slack to June takes forever. So maybe if I can get a volunteer to go try to do that while I look to see if I have a screenshot on my computer.
Maybe not today, but probably sometime in the future.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I'm not seeing it. So it would take a while, but I'll tell you what, I'll upload the screenshot of the voting from this retrospective, and I'll go find the one from the last one, and I'll upload that into the Slack channel too. We can see if we erroneously ignored something that was called to attention back then. But I think Antonen's memory is correct that, you know, some of the things that came, I remember the CI being raised as an issue. I think there were some opinions about the pace too, but they didn't seem to come back out this evening. So maybe those got resolved too. So I've got action items to put a couple of voting summaries on the Slack channel. The team has action items to do something about the things that got upvoted. Does anybody else? And a long-term action item is to evaluate the number of votes in our next retrospective. Anybody else have observations or comments? Okay, I'll take silence as no, and then I'll turn it back to the community meeting moderator. I think that's you, Salvatore. And if you want to close it or bring up something else, go for it.
Yes, yes, I have the moderator role here. Thank you very much, Stephen, for presenting this retrospective. And I don't know if there are any other topics, but is there any other question on the retrospective? Any sort of generic question that you might have, any specific question about the topics discussed in the retrospective? I'll wait 10 seconds as usual for an answer. All right, so as we have still 9 minutes left in the meeting, 9 minutes, 25 seconds to be precise, we don't have any other topic in the agenda. So if there is anything that you would like to bring up, both for features that are currently planned for the next Antrea release or for general community topics, please feel free to propose. And therefore, it seems that it is all for today. This is the last meeting of 2020. And for next year, you know, that has been again a discussion of rescheduling the meeting, as the current timing is particularly difficult for for people in the United States, especially for those not living on the West Coast. As you know, the meeting falls on midnight for the Eastern Coast. So as you know from the Kubernetes, from the Slack channel for this project, we are either discussing the option of having an alternating meeting for Antrea, one in US friendly time zone and one in a Pacific friendly time zone, or we are considering, as reviewed in this retrospective, the idea of adding a second office hours meeting, which will however have a slightly different focus than the community meeting. It will be more to address questions for the community, discuss general topics about the project rather than discussing matters pertaining to upcoming releases and features being planned. So that is all that I had to say for this instance of the meeting. So the only thing that is left to do is wish everyone a great end to this year, relatively great end to this year, and see everyone in 2021.
Okay. See you next year.
Thank you. Happy holidays, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
You happy holidays.